Okay, great stuff. So a few things that wanted to run through today by way of update, and then also for, and also for some of your input as well as contributions. Sorry, I've just been pinged. Jenny's after the. Oh, let me get. She's just after the info. Hold on, she just sent me. See if I can send her the message. See if I can be clever and send her the link.
Alison, is that from the Infantile Spasms Trust?
Yeah.
I've just sent it to her. She's just emailed me.
Oh, super.
I didn't receive the link either. I'm not sure if there's other people who maybe didn't receive the link to the call. So
yeah, do you want me to send it round? I've got it here. I can quickly copy it.
Oh, super. Thank you.
Yeah.
That'll be really helpful. I'm supposed to be a female and be able to multitask, but I'm failing.
Alison, whilst we're just waiting, I can't remember the agenda. Were you going to talk about Felix Chan and the metabolic epilepsies? Is that on the agenda?
Only very briefly, yeah.
Okay, it's just I met him the other day. So if you wanted any brief, I don't know, you might have met him, but I had a 1-hour meeting with him the other day. Completely, well, I thought it was unrelated, but it turns out it wasn't really.
Oh, so you probably got a better update than me. So super.
Maybe.
Thanks, Laura. You can do when we get to that bit in a little bit. Absolutely, yes, please. You can give us an update with where he is on that. Our first item on the agenda, I just put on there to see if we had an update from Daniel on the Conditions Insight report. Daniel sent his apologies. He wasn't able to make today, but he did say that he's not heard anything from Chris and he's chasing again. So the update is we still don't know any further on that, just to take that one off of the agenda. And then the other part, I think, Steph, I think you can only be with us for the first half hour. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Sorry, I'm just driving. So only first half hour, sorry.
No, that's fine. Was there anything specific that off the agenda that you wanted to cover off that we want? So should we put that first, or when you stop driving, or when it's convenient time? Obviously, I don't want to lose you, and we don't cover the point that you wanted to cover.
No, I don't think specifically. Obviously, I'm happy to help with any posting if we decide to do that. And I sent you the logo item, but otherwise, I'll just catch up with the report. So.
Super. Thanks, Steph. Okay, so thank you. I see Jenny's found us. Brilliant, lovely. So good to see everybody. Okay, so working through the agenda, because we've got a few things to cover, but hopefully it's sort of quick updates and then quick opportunities, bit of opportunity for sort of discussion and next steps. The first sort of main item is about formalising the network, which we've mentioned before. So we have made some progress since our last quarterly call with super help from Charlie. Thank you very, very much. We now have 3 members, healthcare professionals, that have agreed to join our advisory board for UKRET. They are Sanjay Sisodia, Amy McTague, and Rhys Thomas. So that's fantastic news, I think, for us, because they're all really keen to help us with the network, give us some advice and help perhaps steer some of the initiatives, steer us towards opportunities that will be good for all of us and for us together as a network. So I think that's really good. And I think we were maybe looking to maybe expand that advisory board a little further, weren't we, Charlie?
Yeah, I think so. So what some of our thinking was to have a good gender balance, but also to have, so obviously Sanjay's an adult neurologist, which is great. Amy is a pediatric neurologist, so that we cover sort of the whole life span. And the thinking around Reese, obviously, I mean, they are some of the very finest anywhere, is that he's in Newcastle. So he's outside what we kind of call the golden triangle of Cambridge, Oxford, and London. So I think it's good to have representation from other parts of the country. And Sanjay, of course, is the sort of the lead for epilepsy at Genomics England. So he's doing a lot of genomics work. And Amy is obviously very much involved with British Pediatric Neurology Association. She's also doing a lot of genomics work. She works closely with Lynn Chitty and Helen Cross. So hopefully we've got a nice spread of experience there.
And
you've also got some other, if anyone else has some suggestions, then please let us know.
I think the idea was we didn't want to have a huge board, but we wanted some key players that we could get together 2 or 3 times a year to really sort of give us that guidance.
And people who are going to be engaged between us. Sometimes I think you can appoint people to scientific advisory boards, and it looks good for their CV, but when it comes down to actually useful input, that can be limited sometimes. But we know that these people are very, very engaged, and the patient at the centre of the stuff they do is paramount to them. So I think that's really important.
The other parties that we considered was maybe whether we have pharma representation, wasn't it, Charlie, or industry, with a sort of a different slant, or whether that's not on our advisory board but on that wider board. I don't know whether we call it the same thing or.
Yeah, well, I don't want to just sort of go out and ask people unless we have agreement from everyone here. But UCB are doing a lot of work in epilepsy. I know a lot of their patient engagement people, so that, and I believe they're going to be, or they are, partners with Genomics England, so that would also tie in well. But then, of course, there are other groups. We've already had a talk from NATA, Nucleic Acid Therapy Accelerator, Professor Pete Oliver. He might be an interesting person. And do we want to think, I know we are UKRET, but do we want to think about asking someone from Enlorum, for example, who are also working on antisense oligo technology? Just thoughts, really. I'm happy to be advised by the group.
Anybody have any immediate thoughts? You can always let us know, obviously, afterwards if any sort of thoughts come to you. Think Charlie and I have separately had conversations with Leslie Perkin at UCB, who is very much behind this network, the concept, this network of all of us working together, and it's something that UCB are very interested in. And it's something that I would like to further engage on to see whether there are any opportunities perhaps for, say, sponsorship support for the costs associated with the running of this network, our website and some of our activities and so on and so forth, but also looking at those broader opportunities that might come with a company that are looking to expand their sort of epilepsy portfolio beyond the 1 or 2 epilepsies that they've been specifically engaged with previously, because I think it's a win-win on both sides. If these pharma companies that look at 1 or 2 epilepsies look at us as a collective, that's greater potential for greater profit and greater opportunity for them, but also greater potential for therapeutic benefit and research opportunities for all of us members. So
this could also almost become sort of like a matchmaking service. We've got our umbrella group UCB might be interested in a specific gene. And of course, we provide a route into the patient groups to allow them to do that. And they also seem to be very interested in the idea of involving patients much earlier in the whole journey. And they've seen, we've spoken about some of the patient groups that have been set up, where, you've got information about publications, you might have a scientific advisory board present. So it shows that we're taking everything very seriously. And I think they like that as a route into involving the patient at the very beginning of the clinical trial work they're doing, rather than sort of thinking about different genes and, can we do this, can we do that? It allows them to be much more agile, to get involved much more quickly.
I fully agree with that. We need pharmaceutical on some kind of side, whether it's as a scientific advisor, or I don't know if there'd be a conflict of interest if they were sponsoring and a scientific advisor, but I definitely think that it's really important to get their opinions. And like you said, they kind of are the ones that are going to be hopefully creating these drugs. So we need to, and definitely like making them aware we exist is, surely part of the whole point of our organization.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to interrupt, if this is the right time, just to say, Mel, you've joined the participant panel.
Yes.
At Genomics England, which means that you'll have a great oversight and make sure that we're doing the right things. So you can hold me.
I have. Well, I've got my first meeting in September, but I was just going to add, in terms of the international scientific advisory board, we've been liaising with NLORM, and I'm still trying to assess the state of play with ASO therapies in the UK and in terms of how advanced they are. But I certainly think NLORM seems to be, they sort of pioneered it, didn't they? So I think they'd be great to have, if we could, they'd be great to have on board, because they've sort of led the way with this area of science. We're trying through our charity as well, the patients who has seizures as a symptom of their genetic mutation, has been accepted onto the NLORM programme. So I think the more that the UK learns from them, really, the better. And it would be great if they would be interested in working with us as a group here.
Yeah, perhaps you could share the details in the chat for how we might contact them. Thanks, Mel.
Yeah, I'll send an email.
Super, thank you. I think moving on from advisory board, next item was the terms of reference. So again, we've drafted a terms of reference for UKRET, which incorporates all of us as member organisations, the advisory board that we're trying to set up, and the sort of roles and responsibilities. Quite a short document. It's only, 3 pages or something, Charlie, something like that. But just kind of setting out who we are, what we do, and to become, what's the point of purpose of the network. And, if you want to be a member and engaged in the network as a member organisation, then, that comes with a small level of commitment, and that you're kind of signing up to that you will try and come along to these meetings, that you will try and contribute to some of the initiatives, and so on and so forth. And also some sort of rules of engagement for the advisory board as well, that they would meet, I think we said 2 or 3 times a year. Off the top of my head, I haven't got it in front of me. And that we, make sure that we do keep them engaged and regularly on board with us and what we're doing and all of that. We've shared that with Sanjay and Amy. Initial response was they were quite, there was no immediate comments, were there, Charlie? So I think our next steps, are we at a position where, should we circulate that to this group?
Yeah, I mean, it is draft, so don't, if you see something, then you throw your hands up in horror. To pass on those comments, and of course we can we can adjust as to what we think is fair.
Yeah.
It's fair.
So if we do that as a next step, I can do that after the meeting, and yeah, we can, if there's any burning comments or things, I think the idea would be that we can get some feedback over the next couple of weeks if we circulate that, and then aim to finalise it and say that's a final document and circulate. The idea is that we would like to circulate for everyone that wants to participate in the network to sort of sign up to that. It's not, there's nothing legal or anything like that, but it's just kind of reflecting that, you know what, we're all in this together, really. So if I can have comments back in the next couple of weeks, that will be super helpful, and then we can get that finalised. And then that moves us into charity registration and the overall governance, because we'd said before that we want to formalise UKRET, maybe set ourselves up as a registered charity. That gives us some more opportunity to be able to do what we want to do, opportunities for funding and sponsorship and so on and so forth, and recognition. So I've actually got some help again through one of Charlie's contacts. Sim, we've got a meeting later this week, haven't we? Who's done some work on charity setup and governance before, that can help us navigate all of that. I mean, I guess I've done it for Ring 20. I guess many of us have done it for our own individual organisations, and it can be a bit onerous just doing that basic admin. So to have somebody that can help us with just getting all of the nitty-gritty set up would be super helpful. So we're gonna see if we can take the first steps towards making that happen later this week. But if anybody is available or would be willing to assist with any of that, you know, we're going to have to review, going to have a constitution, aren't we? I guess we'll use models and things like that, but you know, we're going to have to do all the registration stuff, and any offers of help are always gratefully received. It doesn't need loads of us, but one or two to just help get this sorted would be super helpful. Because one of the things within the terms of ref, just flicking back there, is that what we'd like to have is like a steering committee. So there'll just be a couple of or so of us that will manage UKRET on the activities and the meetings and everything that we're doing. Because it should be, you know, 2 or 3 of us, 3 or 4 of us, that on a rotational basis. I think we put every 2 years or something like that, that, you know, you can be nominated into the steering committee, and, you know, somebody has to chair this, somebody has to ensure that we're having our meetings, everybody knows what we're doing and follows up on tasks and actions. So that will all form part of that governance element. So if anybody is interested, when you read the terms of reference, you know, if you'd be interested in maybe nominating for a first stint on that, that would be really helpful. I know we're all busy doing it all in our individual organisations, but if I can just say we're all in that same boat together. So if we want this network to work, we've all got to give 10% here or there. Otherwise, you know, this network, unfortunately, won't exist. So that would be great. And then finally, on the network piece, I can quickly share. We had some fantastic, oh, now I've just lost them, some logo suggestions. So Steph's had a couple of colleagues who've been able to share some some logo ideas with us, which I thought on first impressions definitely look an improvement on some of the options that I had from the students. So if I can just share, here's a first, there's 2 sets, so I'm going to share these with you now. So just looking for sort of immediate reactions from people in terms of what you like, what you don't like, or what you prefer. So there's I think 4 pages, 4 different kind of theme options with this first set. So these ones are all in this kind of theme. Steph said, don't worry too much. This was a colour palette that was suggested, but we can change the colour palette easily if we want a different variation. And don't worry about the words. Again, those would be adjusted to UK rare epilepsies together. So I think we're kind of looking at the concept of an image with the correct wording. So the first set are these sort of brain with this kind of sort of other half of the brain sort of network type feel. And I'm just going to flick down to the next page. These ones are sort of that head in hand kind of options that we kind of looked at before. I think my only hesitancy on a couple of these are they're very close to the Shinzel Gideon Foundation. So I wonder if we're a little bit too close to the wire there on those. The next set are some sort of brain in a heart type options. Just going back to some previous feedback, some people felt that the image of a heart maybe suggested cardiac rather than brain. And then the last set here, again, another sort of brain type imagery, a bit more kind of abstract-y look and feel. So of that set, just seeing those briefly, obviously I can circulate and people can come back, but any immediate sort of reactions, anything that anybody particularly drawn to?
I like the first page one, D, I think it was.
I was going to say exactly the same.
I think yeah, it really stands out. That was the one that stood out for me.
I like that one too.
I like that one too.
There you go, decision made.
So page 1D.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody quite, that seems to be quite a favourite. Super, that's good. Yeah, I quite liked that image of the kind of the network and the brain. I thought that worked quite nicely, actually. That's good. Any thoughts on colour palettes? Do we like what's suggested here? Do we feel, or has anybody got any particular feel that we should be a different sort of colour palette? I know we looked at blues and things before. These colours look quite nice as well. I do.
I like them. I did a bit of investigation into colours for our fundraiser, and orange is supposed to kind of drive you into action. It's like orange is what you're supposed to use if you want people to get up and do something. So maybe having the oranges actually, works quite well.
I agree. I think that I like the orange and the greeny colour together, and the epilepsy being in bold works as well.
Okay, no, that's really helpful. I'll give you, so there was another little set, so I'll just find the other little set of options just to give you something else to kind of confuse you with. I'll just grab these, sorry, my sorry, I did have these open and then they closed on me. Computer was having a wobbly. All right. Oh. Sorry, I've just got them here now. So these ones similar but different. So different colorway, sort of bluey with purple, but the sort of the brain and the sort of networky different variations, and that's a sort of a slightly lighter version or darker version on these sorts of ones. And that one again is that kind of abstracty brain kind of concept, and that one's sort of more networky. I know I just flicked through those a little bit quickly, so anything grab you there, or still quite like the page 1D1?
I think for me, I mean, I like the one people are talking about, but I also think the abstract ones are different from anything else that is out there, because there are things that are similar to those ones on page, which is possibly why some of, we're drawn to it, because it's what we're used to seeing. Whereas I think some of the abstract ones are definitely different, and they do stand out for that reason. And then the other thing, I think, because this second set you're showing, Alison, I've got the longer wording on them, and I'm wondering whether we'd still like the first ones if once the appropriate wording's put on them, and how that will work with the logo.
Right, yeah. So just to clarify on the first point, to make sure I'm understanding you, do you like sort of this, do you mean this kind of thing by the abstract, or
I must admit, when I saw that one, I thought that's interesting, but I also quite like the swirly one, and I'd looked at the swirly one. Yeah, I just think that that I like my personal thing is I like bolder colours as a but yeah, but then on the first lot you showed us, there was also an abstract page, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. So you're meaning this kind of wiggly brain?
Yeah, I think the first
as an abstract
on the first set. Yeah, but
in the first set, let me just find do this as the wiggly brain page.
Yeah, for me, I just think that one's nicer because it's more like it is the proper shape of the brain, but still with an abstract design. And the only reason I was sort of drawn to it is because I'm not aware of anything else that I've seen that's like that. Whereas the other ones on the first page, yeah, they were nice, and I don't have any problems with it. And at the end of the day, but there are similar things that are out there with those sort of like blobs, and it's not wildly different to. I'm trying to think. Epilepsy research. I've got something similar, but yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing about this was I wasn't quite sure how these would work, whether they'd work as well when you've got the longer wording on them.
Yes, because I think one thing that we need to definitely feedback, because I fell foul of this with our Ring 20 logo, and I've just had somebody do a little bit of redesign, is we ended up with an oblong logo. We ended up with our little circles on one side with the words. So we ended up with a long oblong logo. And then we found lots of places where we had to upload it. We needed a square version. So we need to have something that we can have in a more kind of square version, but also with the wording maybe to the side, as well as more sort of, and as you say, if there's a lot of words, would it fit nicely if it's rare epilepsies together? Whereas these ones perhaps give you a little bit more room. Anybody else have feelings on what Rosemary's just said there?
I'm just looking at the Epilepsy Research UK logo, and it does have some similarities. The right hand, I'm not on mute, am I? Not so, no. The right, so of that, the top one that we all like, the right hand side is very similar to a green, but I can't show it obviously. Anyway, it is similar. I don't think that's a bad thing though, because obviously we are just about epilepsy and they're just about epilepsy. It's not so similar that it's plagiarism. But yes, it is similar. I really like the abstract one as well. My concern is it's quite fine, that like kind of pencil drawing of the brain, and whether, say, like in later times, if we created t-shirts or something, whether you'd really be able to see the brain. But I guess it could be maybe drawn in a thicker line, and that's my take. I do really like that one that Rosemary says. Yeah, I'm just worried whether it would show up from a distance, but that could probably be rectified. And I wonder what it would look like in the colours that we liked, because I do prefer those first, the orangey and the other ones.
That's really useful. Thank you. Yeah, just can you all see this? That's the epilepsy research. So we've got that kind of blobby, networky blob. I suppose they're not really networky blobs, are they? They're probably research blobs. But I see where the similarity you picked up, Rosemary. So that's helpful. So yeah, Laura, I think you're just saying about maybe making sure this is bold enough to stand out if you had something like this. So maybe
it'd still be bold, wouldn't it, if you have so the bottom one, whatever color you go for, if you've got the circle outline, you've actually got the white then shows up with the squiggle.
This one kind of option.
Yeah, that's a lot better. You can see that better. I'm just worried about like A, kind of doesn't stand out much. B, obviously you've got the green on the green. It doesn't stand out much. Yeah.
Okay, so page 4C and page 1D were sort of seem to be the kind of favourites between what people are sort of saying here. Have I got that kind of right? So I'm just wondering, should we just send those couple out to people and maybe just say, come and have a quick vote, a quick poll?
Could they maybe be altered beforehand just to have the correct wording? Then it might make it easier for people. And then you could say, well, these are the options.
Yeah, let's get the wording correct. And colour-wise, we happy with the colours before we circulate? You think?
Yeah, I like.
Yeah, I think those colours work well together.
Okay, so I'll circulate those couple, and then we'll make a decision, and we'll between everyone and get some options. That's super brilliant. Thank you. Really helpful to have lots of feedback on that. Okay, right, back to my agenda. I'll find that 1 second. Okay, where were we on? Yeah, right. Okay. So moving on from the formalisation, the next point I wanted to pick up on was funding. So this will come up in the next bit when we get to things like the awareness opportunities. But it also picks up from the website that we've built and we've created out there. Although the website, I've managed to have it developed for free by the students, and I managed to bag us free web hosting. The applications that we've used for building are free software, free applications, but they have limited functionality. Now that's been absolutely fine for what we've been able to do initially, but if we had a little bit of money in the pot for the network, we could upgrade to use the sort of pro version, if you like, of the web application, which allows us to do a little bit more than the really basic stuff, nothing too fancy, but gives it, we could create a few more things in pages on the website quite easily. Well, we need a little bit of money to do things like that. Also, if we want to have shared exhibition stands, or we want to do some work together, and we don't want them to come out of individual pots, then to have a UKRET pot of money for banners, leaflets, I don't know, anything that we may or may not want or need to do going forward in the future, then we will need some funding for this network. And in an ideal world, really thinking about, yes, if we've got a steering committee and an advisory board, that would be great, because that can kind of share the load with managing the network and the governance aspect. But in an ideal world, we'd have maybe a little part-time position, paid position for somebody to look after the network and look after the activities and look after all of us. Because at the moment I'm doing quite a lot of that on my own, on top of all my Ring 20 work, and as I've had some feedback from some of you as well, when I put out the concept about, you know, what's people's feelings about subscriptions, and thank you to those of you that sort of answered the poll. I think that the several organisations that responded said yes, potentially they'd be happy to make a small subscription to the network, which might help us with things, you know, some really basic, simple stuff. But it wouldn't create a huge pot of money if each organisation, 25 organisations put in £20 a year or even £50 a year. We're not going to have a huge pot of money to do very much with. So I think we do need to look at, you know, corporate funding opportunities or grant funding opportunities. I don't know what people feel from their experiences in their own organisations, but obviously we're not yet a registered charity or, you know, a formally recognised network in that sense. So grant funding from sort of trusts, that type of thing, might be a little bit challenging. It's obviously a very competitive area anyway. And also, if we wanted to go that route, we'd need somebody or some people to sit down and write bid applications, which is a lot of work, as we all know, which we're all struggling to do, I know, with our own organisations. So that's quite a commitment. The other option may be to look at corporate, pharma or industry sponsorship of the network. Could be a better opportunity for the network. And as I say, you know, we're looking at, there's potential for some interest there, maybe from one or two organisations. You know, would that be, has anybody got any suggestions or ideas of, you know, where best maybe to start with that? You're on mute, Rosemary.
Sorry, I was just saying that I think there is an opportunity here for us that not all other organisations have got at the moment. So there's a lot of people talking to farmers about various things, and I don't think the money's dried up there by any sense of the imagination at the moment. And you know, they're still very keen on sponsorship opportunities, but I think there's possibly, if we wanted it, to actually be able to offer somebody something that's slightly more than other organisations are necessarily able or willing to offer, in as much as, you know, this is basically a new start, fresh startup. So there's an opportunity here for, if we found the right partner, to be offering them, you know, sort of like a sole sponsorship for X years. I don't know, if sole sponsorship for 5 years, renewable, you know, reviewed in 3 years or something, for a, you know, X amount of money, and they'd have their logo attached somewhere on it. So I'm just thinking that, you know, there's ways of thinking, why would they come to us as opposed to other people, and what can we offer that's different? I think that's one of the key things that is different, that they could be offered some sort of sole type sponsorship. If we want to tie it, you know, we've got to be mindful of how we're tying ourselves up in that. But I suppose if we're tying ourselves in that, you can ask for a little bit more in the first instance for so many years, and maybe that would be helpful to us in the situation we're in for the first couple of years, because it allows you to plan.
That's really good idea. Thanks, Rosemary. Sarah.
I'm so sorry, I keep dipping in and out because I've got bad reception, so I hope I'll stay with you. I don't know whether we have this. Do we have a kind of policy about pharma industry funding and collaborations? Because it might be worth drawing something up quickly before we go out for funding.
So we haven't got any policies yet. So this is all part of that governance and formalisation. Yeah. It's a good idea, makes sense, but we'd need somebody to help us draft that.
I've just drafted one for Unique, so I'm really happy to, and we've just revised the one at Genetic Alliance, so it's just, that's why it's at the top of my mind, because it's one of the things that's been happening for me anyway. So I'm happy to help with that if that's something we want to do.
That sounds helpful to me. Do others think that will be beneficial? Yeah, we've got lots of nods. Thank you, Sarah. I think you've just put yourself up for that one. Thank you.
Okay, no problem at all. And in terms of the logo, I couldn't look at them because I'm driving, but I'll give you my feedback over
Perfect.
email afterwards when you circulate them, if that's all right.
Absolutely fine. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for staying with us. Ella.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm quite new to my position at the TSA. I only joined at the end of April, so I might just be, I don't know, spouting out rubbish. But something we're looking to do, and kind of in particular relation to, I know that you're supporting Felix Chan with his application, aren't you? Have you thought about if you're supporting other researchers, actually getting them to cost in UKRET's time for something,
Yeah.
for whatever we're doing? Because, you know, the researchers are the ones kind of putting in those bids to those £1 million pots, and you know, if you're contributing, and whether that's through, you know, connecting with patient organisations, that type of thing, just whether that could possibly be just an avenue to recuperate some of the cost towards somebody, like you say, working in a part-time position.
Yeah, no, it's a really good idea. Something from my experience, others may have better experiences. The work that I was doing when we were doing patient advocacy in Epicare, it was something that we were trying to, because everything there is voluntary, and then they were looking at, although Epicare wasn't doing specific research, but they, you know, the doctors and researchers were all dipping into stuff, and they were like, oh, we need a patient organisation to help get this, you know, application in. And it's like, right, okay, we need, you know, a specific epilepsy organisation to get involved. So we'd find that organisation. But when we broached the subject of what would be the patient advocacy, you know, you want them to make a contribution, you want them to be involved from the beginning to the end of the research, from the application stage to the design, to the delivery, to the promotion and the publication. And you want patient advocacy across that board. And then we said, so you're going to be prepared to put in within the budget for, you know, that organisation's time? And they go, and like you say, there'd be these £1 million budgets, multi-million pound budgets, where all the researchers and get all their time funded, but they wanted all the patient input for free. And we were sort of arguing that, yeah, we're all patient organisations, you know, this is people's day jobs. In fact, most people are doing this voluntarily anyway, and you want us to do more. I don't know. I think it's something we should definitely be arguing for if we get involved as UKRET with some research, such as Felix Chan's, if that comes off.
But like you say, yeah, no, it's something. It's just, I know it's something that the TSA is kind of trying to start putting through. It's just, you know, since the NIHR have updated their guidelines, the fact that, yeah, people like patients who are involved should be reimbursed for their time to make the connection kind of meaningful and equal. But at the same time, like you say, the people behind the scenes, for example, yourself, who is coordinating all of this, should also, you know, be remunerated. But yeah, like you say, in practice. But I don't know whether it's something like a policy that over the coming years should be aimed to work towards. You say, even if in practice at the moment it's just not feasible.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good idea, and I think if we do move forward with any research opportunities, I think that's something we should definitely have right at the forefront of. Okay, if you want UKRET involved, we then come together and we put forward what we want as UKRET as part of our PPI contribution to any research opportunity, that we don't come for nothing, because there is a cost to this network, and they get the benefit of all of us and all of our input. So yeah, Mel.
I would agree with that. We've been trying to do this a bit more as well. I think we've all been sort of pleased to be involved in research, so we always say yes. But actually, we've got to move forward and recognise that we're giving the researchers just as much as they're delivering for us. And so we've been putting in, trying to get full cost recovery for any involvement in research projects. going forward. So yes, I would wholeheartedly support that.
Thanks, Sarah. Mel, you've got your hand up too.
Yeah, I don't know, something that we did, we're a relatively new charity as well. We kick-started with a like a big fundraising walk, and I don't know if that's maybe a way potentially to get a corporate sponsor. You could get them to sponsor the t-shirts, or to get that initial involvement and relationship with the corporate world, if you go to them with an actual event that you're maybe doing to kickstart your fundraising.
Yeah, so that's an interesting view. I don't know what others feel. When we kind of mentioned fundraising as opposed to getting, say, sponsorship or grant funding type funding, fundraising, I think the group felt that because we're all individually fundraising, trying to do events ourselves, how easy or difficult might it be to try and get marathon places, or I don't know, for UKRET as opposed to our individual charities, because we'd have that conflict of interest of who do we put the place to if we haven't got enough people, and might that be a difficult thing? I think it's a broader issue and challenge that we all face in this space, what all charities face, but whether there's a longer term vision or opportunity that actually this network could move towards a greater alliance of these sort of individual member charities, and that maybe a much more longer term vision is that we become, that the network has a potential to like overtake the individual charities, because I don't know, this is just a thought, this might be a really stupid idea, and I'm sure there's pros and cons either way, but I see as individual charities for really tiny rare epilepsies or any rare disease, it's a real struggle to stay above water. Whereas if we were a network and the funding and the whole thing was a network, but we have individual specialisms within that network for the individual epilepsy, individual representation, individual information. And I don't know whether this, I know we haven't got anybody on from, say, Epilepsy Action or anything, or Epilepsy Research UK or Epilepsy Society, for example, here, but just thoughts running through my head are, do you know what, if there's an umbrella organisation that says, do you know what, if you want to know about infantile spasms, we've got a team or people you go and talk to over here, but it's within that umbrella. Or I don't know, Rosemary, you're Young Epilepsy, so you're more of an umbrella organisation. I don't know. This is probably way out there, and maybe maybe a really stupid idea, but I think there are going to be more of us individual member organisations trying to exist and almost competing against each other, and it's just the admin of everything that's really difficult in the fundraising environment.
I guess from just off, as you're saying, I don't think it's a stupid idea at all, what you're suggesting, Alison, and obviously it needs a lot of thinking, and perhaps it is a bit further down, but in principle there would, I can't see there be any reason why people wouldn't be up for the discussion about hosting, or some way, I don't know what the right word is, but being the umbrella or a host, in order that everything, I suppose then the other thing is you can then latch on to, you'd have your own space, or we as this group would have our own space on a hosted website that is there, that links through to everything, so you'd have your own link, and still, so you'd have a direct route to it, but actually you wouldn't incur all the costs. So there is no reason why that, I guess, and certainly Young Epilepsy would definitely be up for that discussion. I get from other people on this call, though, the question mark is does the fact that we're young epilepsy, you know, I mean, we openly work with people up to the age of 25, but of course that, you know, there's people outside that. I guess there's ways of means of working around that, I guess, but you know, and it may be there's other organisations that would be people feel would be better placed to represent the whole of that as opposed to, you know, that side. But I think there's definitely some real thoughts there before, because then that does mean that any sponsorship that you do get directly for ourselves can then be more targeted on the things you want to do, as opposed to having to spend it on all of those, you know, boring but no doubt necessary infrastructure type arrangements and things. So there's, and again, I suppose, you know, with any of these types of things, you have to think, you know, why does it work on both sides? If I just use us as an example, I can see there will be lots of benefits once this group had negotiated right about what that came with. But actually, for whoever is that host or larger organisation, it is about being able to evidence that link through to all of those groups. And I guess the other thing is then that ties you in with greater research communities as well, and opportunities and existing patient participation, which again, advantages on both sides because it means things can grow. But it is about making sure you retain the ownership of what you want to keep control over. But actually, and I suppose those sort of things never have to be forever, do they? It may be something that works very well for a period of, you know, 3 to 5 years again, while the whole network builds and decides whether it's actually built to an extent where it then does want to stand alone, or that host partnership arrangement works very well with the umbrella group, that it's something that needs, you know, wants to continue. But it's definitely a sensible idea to explore, I would have thought.
Also, potentially, if you had a conference or something like that, it would be good to have, you could get the key researchers for all these separate conditions under UKRET together.
That's what we did last year, of course, yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know. So that, it gives it more momentum, doesn't it, as well? I guess the tricky thing is, like my understanding is with genomic sequencing, like they're finding everything's becoming more individualized as to the reasons why things are happening, in terms of sort of getting to the root causes of treatments. It'll be different approaches for all the different types of epilepsy, dependent on, say, genetically where the root cause is of the epilepsy.
Yeah, but I guess that if you go to the bigger organization, again, I'm not saying us, I'm just saying, just talking about young epilepsy at the moment. So with our research program, obviously all the people you've been talking about are very much have got their program. So Amy McTague has got her own research programs with our research, and we work with you know, Great Ormond Street with all of the different conditions. So you have the links and that, and so and we have the patient participation group as well, which again could either be extended or there could be a subgroup of that. It depends how you wanted to do it. And I'm sure the other organisations will have similar types of things. So I think there's ways of having those discussions and negotiating. But I also, off the top of my head, I mean, you'd have to have the proper discussions. I don't see any reason why that means that this group would have to lose control of the aspects that they want to keep control of. And I can genuinely say there could be a win-win situation there, actually.
It's just I just thought I'd kind of float that out there. I'm glad it's not a completely stupid idea, and I think it is way down the line, and you know, hey, who knows where we'll be in 2-5 years, and we may be thinking completely differently, but I think there's potential.
Also something though, Alison, about thinking, you know, I mean, I know it's interesting how you have the sort of conversations and you start thinking, hang on, there's two ways of thinking about it. Either it's something that is 3-5 years down the line to think about that, or do you think about it the other way and actually use it as the means to get that step up to where you want to go? So potentially, if all of a sudden you have, you know, if you find that link with an organization that's already got all the websites and everything set up, and you can have that link agreed within the next 9 to 12 months, does that then give you the link to a lot of other things? So you wouldn't need to develop your website to the same degree, and you'd have all the aspects. So any money you did get would be able to be spent on other things that, your priorities could change, couldn't they? And as long as you don't tie yourself into something, it gives you an opportunity possibly to start with greater impact, and then build things up to the degree where you then decide, actually, now is the time to move away and do it yourself, or continue with it if it still works. I don't know, there's different ways of thinking about it.
I mean, it could make it an attractive option. For, I think you suggested, a startup sponsorship for UKRET, that if the sort of sponsorship deal that we would go out and ask for would be to be able to host and maintain the website, which would have links to the individual websites, but maybe also some contribution towards maintenance, because all of us having to develop stuff on our own websites and things like that costs money, if we can't do things ourselves, but also that whole governance of our individual organisations, particularly the smaller ones that don't have paid staff and so on and so forth, bid writing, fundraising plans, I don't know, all the stuff we all have to do all the time. If we could have a shared resource that we could tap into, we'd have to think about how we could make sure that was shared amongst the organisations that wanted it to, but it would perhaps, if we could get a funding pot that said, it would provide some kind of equity across the organisations. I don't know, just some thinking to create that bit more level playing field, that we can all be seen and be heard in terms of the work we're doing, the disease we represent.
Think about maybe the two aren't mutually exclusive though. So I'm just thinking, would the best of both worlds be that if you manage to find an organisation you could link with, you'll get access to websites and that type of thing, plus other potentially, I don't know, other, depending on whatever agreement you have with them, that still leaves you to be able to go out to give those startup opportunities to a sponsor, but instead of having to spend, so I don't know, if a sponsor gives you 20k, you don't have to then spend 5k of that on doing the website, because that bit would be covered by the other part. So you could have more money for your own staffing, admin, and pursuing events, or as Mel suggested, or whatever it is you want to do. Don't know, it's just sort of thoughts.
I think potentially warrants some further discussion and contributions further on. So apologies, we've just gone past past. There were a couple of other bits on the agenda that we haven't covered. I knew it was a bit of a big agenda today. Is everyone okay to stay on for a few more minutes, or are we all good for it? So we'll continue. Okay. Next point on the agenda was awareness opportunities. So the first one is that we have managed to bag a shared stand at ILA Congress in Dublin in September. GLUT1 and Ring 20 are going to man that stand over the 3 days. We've got sort of a couple of people on each day between us over the 3 days, and so the cost of that stand, we actually had to fight to get a stand because they were telling us they were unavailable, but we managed to get one. So the cost is being shared between Ring 20 and GLUT1 because we're actually going to be there. But we are very happy to have if anybody hasn't got their own stand there or their own representation, if you want to have some of your own leaflets that we can put out on the stand, we've got 1 6-foot table or whatever it is, but a few leaflets from many of the organisations. If you wanted that opportunity, it's massive international congress with fantastic delegation. We can organise having a few of the leaflets on the stand, and we'll have our UKRET banner up as well, because although it's an international thing, obviously there'll be lots of UK represented healthcare professionals, pharma, etc. there, as well as international contacts, which potentially would also be interested in saying, hey, there's one route into all these UK-based rare epilepsy charities. So if you want a share in some of that opportunity, give us a shout. I'll send some details round. There are 3 other opportunities coming up later this year. So listing them off, I'm looking at my other screen. Cambridge Rare Disease Network, I don't know how many of you know, they have their Rare Summit, which happens every 2 years, and that's this year on the 12th of October. It's going to be based at the Wellcome Genome Campus in Cambridge again. Very well attended rare disease networking opportunity. I know from firsthand from our Ring 20 experience 4 years ago now, I was given an opportunity to speak in a panel discussion, and that's where our collaboration with Illumina came from, me speaking and saying, hey, we're at Wellcome Genome Campus and you can't diagnose a ring chromosome yet with whole genome sequencing. And that led to conversations and collaboration for some research work that they're doing with us. So I know it's a brilliant opportunity for UK rare epilepsies to come together, and, you know, we can usually have a free stand. It's free attendance for anybody. I would recommend it wholeheartedly for anybody that wanted to attend. But I think we'd look to have a shared stand, and again, that opportunity to have the shared leaflets for anybody that doesn't have their own stand. And actually these events, it makes sense to me, again, because I've seen the challenges we had at BPNA and then at ILAE. It was like, they've only got X number of stands, and they're all swiped in the first 5 minutes. And then some of the other charities that want to stand, well, there's no room left. Whereas if we share a stand, many more of us as organisations get representation, and then we can share the manning of the stands between whoever wants to be present and whoever's happy to speak on behalf of, you know, all the different organisations. So it really shares the load. So that one's an opportunity if anybody is interested in that one. Similarly, Beacon, formerly Find a Cure, they've got a London event, their Rare Disease Showcase. That's in November, the 27th of November. I think they also have opportunities for stands, and they usually have opportunities for lightning talks as well, they call, which is where you can stand up and give a 5-minute talk about your organisation. Again, they have, you know, pharma industry, healthcare professionals, blah, 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 attendance, as well as rare disease organisations. Again, that one, I think they've put something like £10 attendance fee on early bird tickets. So nothing like the bigger conferences, but again, great opportunities for networking and finding, you know, different people to work with. And then another one that's just been put forward to me is Aspire, which is a startup company that do some sort of matchmaking. They've got a 3rd rare neurology networking event. I actually did the first one with Ring 20. We applied for the second one. We didn't, as UKRET, but we didn't get picked up, but they have come back to us for their November event in London, which will be, again, the opportunity to do a lightning sort of talk. I think, again, it's 5 or 10 minutes that you get to speak about where you want to go with research, but it's attended by 10 dozen pharma or industry, and you're specifically pitching to them about where your challenges are and where the opportunities are. And then you kind of do speed dating later on, where you get 10-15 minutes with each company to talk one-on-one, and you get a couple of rounds of that. with everybody, so you can really see if there's a match with different companies. So if we get taken up because there are different organisations trying to get a space, because they only take about 10 organisations into each of their events, but you get in front of some of some of the small companies and some bigger companies as well, and it's a day that's probably not wasted to see where we may make some connections for some new initiatives that we might be able to do as a, whether that's as a whole as a network or parts of the network. Some of the organisations in a specific space, different types of rare epilepsies, but groups of them might be appealing to a particular company or particular opportunity. So wanted to make sure that I shared those with you, because I'm not sure that everybody is on all of those sort of forums and mailing lists, would know about them, but I think it's really good. But if anybody else comes up with any epilepsy or rare epilepsy, rare disease events that they know about, please share across the network, let other people know, because not all of us always know what's going on and what are the good ones to attend, or how you get the cheap tickets or the freebies or whatever.
Can I add BPNA onto that list, because it's in Bristol? I'm in Bristol, so I'm very happy to be the representative of that one. That's 24th and 25th of January next year.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. We could share the stand, Jenny.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that'd be brilliant. So that's BPNA, isn't it? Yeah. So they put out, that reminds me, I didn't put it on there, but they've put out for abstracts, haven't they? I think.
Yeah.
So this was something that Steph, I know she's had to drop off, so I think she's got clinic, but we actually did some work, Steph and Laura and myself. We were doing a little abstract for UKRET. We were going to try and do it for ILAE, and then we unfortunately missed the deadline, so we weren't able to put in a submission, but we thought maybe we could do something and put that forward for BPNA or for any of these other. I know Rare Summit, they have poster opportunities. We could do posters and abstracts as UKRET. Again, we need to think about these things, and we need a small group of 2 or 3 of us to go away and work on these things if we wanted to submit something, but it would help to raise awareness and get seen and get heard. That's a really good opportunity, Jenny, if you're happy to be there, and Laura at the next BPNA.
Yeah, I'm actually submitting an abstract for our organisation, but with the BPNA. I'm not actually writing it. I just get to have my name on it without having to do any work. Yeah, I believe the deadline is something like 1st of September for submitting abstracts.
Not that far away then.
Yeah, I think it's then. And also with the the Cambridge one, the Rare Summit one, there is, I can't find the link, so if anybody has it, can you send it to me? Anybody can submit a poster, and you just need to, it's literally just like a short contact registration thing with the title of the poster. And then I'm going, so if UKRET wanted a poster, I physically have to have it and take it with me and take it there and put it up. So I'm going to do one for Cask Research. If I can find out how to submit it, I'm happy to take one if UKRET does one. It could be the same information potentially as what would be on an abstract. I don't know if that's allowed. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. The Rare Summit posters, so I've done some of these before for Ring 20, they really encourage the patient organisations. You can do something, it doesn't have to be a scientific research poster. It
can just be introducing UKRET. So it could be like just a really good opportunity just to say, look, we exist now. This is what we are. Yeah, it could be just like an introductory poster.
Yeah, and it could kind of spell out the challenges and opportunities, why we formed a network.
Yeah, if you want, because I'm going to create one for Cask Research. So I'm going to have like a format and a layout. If you want me to just kind of put bits in from the website and things into one, send it back to you, we could look at it, and then I'm happy to get it printed off with the printers I'm going to use. And then I physically got it, then I can physically take them both. along.
Be super helpful. I think if others think that would be a good idea, good opportunity, because we can then reuse the poster again. You know, small costs of things like the poster, say small, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, this would be good where if we had a little pot of money, it could come out of a UKRET pot. But I should probably be, I will be at Rare Summit and
Okay.
at the London event as well. So
Okay, well, just let me know if you want me to.
yeah, no, that'd be super helpful. Thanks, Laura. That'd be great.
I'm happy. I have to say I've not ever got anything printed like that, but I'll find out how much it is. But if it's, you know, if it's not that much, I'm happy to just take the cost.
Yeah, I think they're usually sort of somewhere between around £50 or something like that. Sometimes something like that, because you have to have them printed on.
Yeah, I'll find out.
A0.
Maybe it's a deal. If I'm doing like 2 posters, maybe I'll get a deal, a discount.
Okay, great. And then just before we finish, so the Felix Chan piece. So Laura, did you want to, I mean, all I was going to say, and you probably got a bit more info, is that I know from Felix that he reached out and said he's got through to the second round for the metabolic epilepsies application with LifeArc. So he was going to come back to us in the near future. But Laura, do you have any further info?
I don't specifically on his application for that. So I spoke to him because he had noticed us on social media, and so he actually contacted in terms of the fact we're CAS research. And it wasn't until I was looking back at the agenda, the minutes from UKRET, that I realised he was the person that we'd been asked to, you know, give our thoughts and advice to, and I'd actually ignored it because I didn't think CAS was a metabolic epilepsy. So I just wanted to say that if some of you are sat there thinking the same as I was thinking, Felix Chan has quite the ability to persuade you otherwise. So basically, don't discount that your epilepsy doesn't have a metabolic basis. I'm sure there must be, he seems to think like every epilepsy probably does, but I think there are definitely some diseases that that maybe have a metabolic aspect, but that isn't kind of the way the research has been going, which seems to be how CASC fits in. So I never actually got involved in those emails from UKRET with Felix because I discounted us. So it's just worth kind of considering if his, if he ever does kind of approach us again or get in touch, that, you know, maybe it's worth listening.
Ella, you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say on the back of that, Felix, one of his kind of models that he works on is TSD, and he's spoken at our patient community event this year, and it was really, really well received. He's such a personable, really, really invested researcher, I think. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there in terms of character as well. He does want to involve patient organisations right from the beginning. So yeah, that was all I wanted to add.
Yeah, he's really great. Yeah, hopefully he can help us.
Yeah, I definitely got that impression from he feels like that he genuinely wants to engage with us, and I picked up also what you said, Laura, that yeah, even there's only a few epilepsies that have been defined as metabolic, but I think there's definitely some worth exploring how much metabolism is an impact or an effect in some of the other epilepsies. So I think there is opportunity for many more of us to be involved here, which I think is good, and he's keen to do that. So as soon as I have anything, if he comes through me or if he comes through anyone else, you know, we will share, because I think second stage application, he actually has to say where his PPI is coming from and who the contributors are. So that's where he will need either specific organisations or whether he can use us as UKRET as an umbrella. And we'll see where that goes, which would be good. I think that would give us a really nice model if that proves successful. because LifeArc that's who he's applying through. You know, I went to their event in London a few weeks ago, because they are investing, I don't know if all of you saw, very heavily over the next few years in rare diseases, in research, and they are quite interested in rare epilepsies as well. So I've had various conversations with Katrina Crombie and Madhu, and I'm continuing those conversations, you know, and they are really interested in us as a network as well. They see that as potential. So I think they're another opportunity to stay in contact with. So final AOB, sorry, we are going quite a little bit over, but I think we're ambitious to try and cover everything in an hour. Laura, you wanted to just mention about the Inchstone project.
Oh yes. So very quickly, I'm not sure how many people will have heard of it. It is it's American. I'm just getting up the email. It was more, so I don't want to tell you all about it. I'm not promoting it, but basically it is for DEEs, developmental and epileptic encephalopathies, which will be, I presume, quite a lot of you. And they want to, basically, you probably know that in terms of getting any kind of drugs to market, they often fail because the outcomes can't be measured properly, and especially for very severe disorders where kind of the measurements are like the milestones when really they should be the inchstones, which is why it's called the Inchstone project. So, you know, they might be going, oh, well, this child can't walk, can the drug make them walk? It's like, well, no, but they can now move their leg, but that wouldn't ever be measured. We would see, you know, something like that as potentially a game changer, even though it's very small, and we would still want a medication to be licensed, even if you know, what other people would see was only small improvements. For us, they could dramatically improve our lives and the lives of our children. So I think that's the premise of this project. And so you can sign up to the Inchstone project if you want. It seems to be international, and basically you fill in surveys. You'll see there's basically, you just email them and they just send you, they say, yeah, you're part of it now. I don't even think they check who you are. And they send you all the information with like who can be involved and all of that. But I think my main thing was, does anybody know of anything like this in the UK? Because obviously this is, again, American. Everything, there's so many things seem to be American, or even just Europe, because I presume, I really don't know much about this at all, but I presume maybe drug licensing is different in Europe and the UK to America. Maybe it is. Maybe we need different outcome measures, even if they created these outcome measures and the FDA or whatever accepted them for use, maybe they would never be accepted in the UK, Europe. So if anybody hears of anything similar, I think I'd quite like to get more on board with a UK or European initiative. I'm presuming not.
No, I haven't heard anything, but I have heard of it. I've listened to it. Was it on Effie Park's podcast?
Yeah,
I think it's a really good idea, those smaller milestones, actually having in a sort of a measurable documenting it in a more measurable way for the smaller milestones that are real gains to some of these children. But I haven't heard of anything similar in the UK.
Yeah, I know Espay Rare. I had a meeting with the founder of Espay Rare a while ago. They're in, oh gosh, Northern Europe somewhere, Scandinavia, I think. Anyway, she mentioned about this problem with measurements and stuff. She mentioned muscular dystrophy and how a drug had recently not passed approval. And I just haven't had time. I was going to contact them again and see if that is something they were looking at. They're definitely European, but at the time of that conversation, I wasn't really aware of this as a problem, so I kind of wasn't knowledgeable enough really to have a decent chat about it.
I don't know much about it. Sorry, I don't know much about it either, but I've just signed up our organisation to the Inchstone project, so we're interested in collaborating on that as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was just going to say in the European space. So when I was working with Epicare, they definitely had some working groups and initiatives looking at patient-reported outcome measures, and you know, trying to look at, you know, improving those for rare epilepsy research and those sorts of things, and you know, for I guess the same sort of reasons that, you know, what are, and the Duchenne muscular dystrophy is the classic example that's always cited, isn't it? It was I think it was the outcome measure was always, can they walk 50 meters or something? And actually to the patient, you know, it wasn't the ability to walk 50 meters that meant success. It was the, if I can stand up and get out of my chair or something like that. It was something much smaller that was a massive milestone for them. And, you know, there is a big, across the European rare disease space, there is a big push to look at patient-reported outcomes and improving on those, or creating some kind of more standards. But I don't know how far that's going. I think it's quite a big piece of work. As I say, I've stepped away from that directly, so I don't know if there is, but you know, we could always contact the EPAGs at Epicare if there was anything, or they could keep us. We've got a couple of them within this group that can keep us, you know, Carol Ann and Emma Knotts are both part of this wider group, both usually working at this time, so can't usually join the call, but they could potentially keep us updated if there was any information, I guess, coming from the European space. But really good initiative, really good idea. I know we've lost everybody because it's coming up to 2 o'clock. So the other last thing I wanted to share was this was circulated, and I got sent through a couple of copies of this from, I think it was Gene People, actually. They'd put it out on their Facebook group. It's GenIDA. It's a platform for participatory clinical research on genetic forms of intellectual disability, autism and epilepsy. I've got a couple of these booklets because I kind of, when they put it out there and they said, oh, you know, for anyone interested in epilepsy, there's this initiative out there, and they've been given some booklets. So I said, hey, you know, the UKRET, I'm sure there might be some members that would be interested in this. I don't know, has anybody heard about this at all? No, it's interesting, isn't it? You get something like this that's all about rare epilepsy or like difficult DE type epilepsy and stuff, and like nobody's heard of it. So if anybody, I've only got a couple of copies, but you know, happy to send them out if people wanted to sort of see what data they're collecting, what they're doing, and whether this could be helpful. Just give me a shout. I'm sure we could sort of pass them around in the post or something. Yeah, shall I get one out to you, Rosemary?
Thank you.
No problem. But similarly, if anybody else comes across, you know, any other initiatives, or you know, because it any information sent through about some kind of opportunity, please do share in the network. I know some of you are, and I think, you know, sometimes just individual organisations are contacted about something, but it'd be really good to keep sharing anything that comes through, so we all kind of know what's going on, and you know, might benefit someone else within the group, which would be great. Super. That brings me to the end of my agenda list. Was there anything those of you remaining wanted to say or share before we close off the call?
Sorry, no. And I was just waving a flyer away.
Great. Well, I really appreciate your time, as always, and your contributions. So I'll send out some notes after the call with the key sort of action points, and obviously the recording can be available for those that are unable to join. And thank you very much for staying on that bit longer, but I think we've covered some really good ground today. So thanks ever so much, and onwards and upwards to the next call, where maybe we'll be another step forward to be a little bit more formalised, and I guess we'll be probably be after ILAE, won't we? Yeah. So where are we now? Beginning of August, September, October, no. Yeah. We'll probably be past ILAE and Rare Summit and some of that other stuff. So we might have some interesting stuff to report on and see where some of these other initiatives are going as well. So fab. Take care. Have a great rest of your week, and stay in touch.
Thanks, Alison.
Thanks all.